My parents are furious I didn't consult them about buying my house. I knew something was wrong the moment my mother's voice sharpened into that brittle, glass-thin tone she reserves for disappointments she intends to weaponize. She stood in my doorway, staring at the boxes I hadn't even finished unpacking. My father hovered behind her, jaw twitching like he was chewing on a secret. "You bought it," she said, not asking. Accusing. The air shifted, tightened. I felt the walls closing in around their expectations, the ones I hadn't agreed to but had grown up choking on. I didn't know the whole story yet, but I could already sense betrayal, a quiet, festering thing waiting to be named. And then she said it. "You should have talked to us. This affects the whole family." Her emphasis on whole felt like a knife slid under the skin. I didn't know it then, but that sentence was the doorway to a truth that would burn everything down. A truth about my sister, her husband, their 3 kids, about the life my parents built for me without me. I leaned against the wall, heartbeat steady, but something colder gathering in my chest. I asked her, "Why would buying my house affect anyone but me?" Her silence was my answer, and behind it, a secret big enough to ruin us all. I didn't speak again, not until I learned the truth, not until I made my plan. And by the time I executed it, there was nothing left for them to salvage. There was a time I believed my parents loved me without conditions. A simpler illusion. When I got my first job, they seemed proud. When I saved enough for a down payment, they told me I was responsible. When I dreamed out loud about having a place that was quiet, mine, untouched, my mother even smiled. Looking back, I realized it wasn't pride. It was calculation. Every praise had strings. Every compliment had a destination. They never saw me as an adult, only as a resource. Still, I trusted them. Even when my sister married a man who collected failures like trophies. Even when they had 3 kids they couldn't afford. Even when my parents kept bailing them out, praising sacrifice while quietly resenting the cost. I thought the resentment was directed at my sister. I didn't realize it was aimed at me, the one who had escaped the undertow they expected me to drown in. The first crack came casually. My sister slipped, thinking I already knew. She said, "The kids are excited. They want to know which bedroom they'll get." I remember blinking at her like she had spoken in a foreign language. "Bedroom, where?" I asked. She froze. Her smile faltered, and for a single, sharp second she looked afraid. She covered quickly, "Oh, nowhere. Forget it." But lies make noise when you play them backward. I started listening. I noticed how my parents spoke about my house like it was an asset they owned. How my father kept asking whether the basement was finished. How my mother kept insisting I didn't need a second bedroom, as if my preferences were a problem to solve. The undeniable evidence came 2 weeks later. I found a group text I wasn't meant to see. My sister discussing move-in dates with my parents. My father mentioning the obligation of family. My mother saying, "She won't say no once everything is in motion." They planned to move them in, without asking me, because in their minds, my life was a staging ground for my sister's convenience. The betrayal didn't make me cry. It made me cold, the kind of cold that sharpens everything. I didn't fight, not outwardly. I asked nothing. I confronted no one. I let them believe I was oblivious, because revenge thrives in silence. My parents expected me to cave the way I always did. They mistook my calm for compliance. I started planning. Legal protections. Locks changed. Security cameras. A notarized letter barring unauthorized occupancy. A conversation with a lawyer about trespassing laws. I even timed my moves with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. One wrong cut, and they'd explode before I was ready. By the time they realized something was off, it was already too late. The day they tried to surprise me with a visit, 3 cars rolling up my driveway like an invasion, I was ready. My mother marched up with a box in her arms. My sister herded her kids behind her like they were entering their new kingdom. My father looked at me with that patronizing certainty that comes from decades of never being challenged. "We decided today is a good day to start moving things in," he said. I didn't raise my voice. I simply pulled out the document I had prepared. Restraining language, property rights, trespass warnings. My father scanned it, face draining of color. My mother sputtered something about family. My sister burst into tears. I remained still. Then I stepped aside, letting the motion-sensing camera blink red. By stepping onto this property past this point, I said quietly, you agree to be recorded as trespassers. My father's hands shook. My mother's voice cracked. My sister dragged her children back to the car, eyes smoldering. They realized finally that I wasn't their fallback plan. I was the one variable they couldn't control. My mother tried calling that night, voicemail after voicemail, shifting between guilt, rage, pity, manipulation. Then the final message came. If you do this, you're choosing to leave this family. I listened to it twice. Then I sent them a single text. I'm choosing myself. And I blocked them. Silence followed. A silence fuller than any apology they could have manufactured. I sit in my living room now, surrounded by the quiet I fought for. The house is mine, not because I signed the deed, but because I protected it. People say cutting off family is drastic. But letting people walk over you just because you share blood? That's something I'll never do again. They built a future on my sacrifices. I burned the blueprint. And in the ashes, I finally found myself.